Hello and good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. This is Radio Works World. I am Marion Bevington, your vision host. And today I want to talk about, expectations. The subject I want to cover today, it takes me easily down all sorts of rabbit holes. So I'm going to try and keep myself focused on the word expectations because it's a really important thing that I have to remember. And I'm sure that many of you, like me, are sometimes stuck when we realize that we have an expectation, and that expectation then begins to drive our emotional state, shall we say. So what sparked this conversation, and it's something that happened to me recently and a conversation that I've already had today, is about what do we do when we want to honestly express ourselves and we want to talk to somebody about something that we don't like? How do we differentiate between the person and the thing? So what I'm talking about is, say somebody makes a commitment to you, say somebody makes a promise, or they say something and it generates an expectation in you. Then that person doesn't live up to that expectation, so you feel disappointed. I know that happens to me a lot. And then when I'm disappointed, I start to judge the person. And then I start to judge myself. And then it gets into a negative spiral because, you know, in my heart of hearts, I want to be like Jesus, or I want to be like Gandhi, or no, not Gandhi, Dalai Lama, or I want to be like some beautiful soul who's full of compassion and full of love. But that's not realistic because I do have judgments and I do have expectations. And so how can I best get through my life, my day, my hour, my minute, my next minute, knowing that I'm feeling disappointed, knowing that I feel let down, knowing that I feel that somebody is not being honest, or what is it that I can do about all of that? So the first thing that I try to remember, and this is a great story. So I remember I was about 13, 12, maybe less. Actually, no, I must have been about 9. Yeah, I must have been about 9. So I'm 9 years old. Now, I don't know, you can't really tell on camera, can you? But I'm quite tall. I'm 6 foot in heels. And there was this lovely teacher called Miss Dawson in our school. Miss Dawson, she's trendy. She's got this blonde Farrah Fawcett Majors hair. So I'm giving away my age now. So if you were a child of the 70s at school, you'll know Farrah Fawcett Majors. And so Miss Dawson was a really cool teacher because she was young enough and trendy enough for me as a 9-year-old to relate to her as cool. You know, she wasn't some granny looking old strict teacher with a stick. So cool Miss Dawson, she loved netball and she was into sports. She also loved French and she really inspired me. And I developed a great love for languages. And I also loved netball. Now, the fact that I was the tallest girl in the class meant that I was always at the back, hanging around the goal, trying to stop the shooter. So I just used to stand with my arms like this. And I was very fast at running because I was so tall. So netball was great. It was for me, it was an easy sport to play. And I didn't have to get the ball in the goal because then it wouldn't have been an easy sport for me. I'm not very good at that. But I was good at blocking people. And I remember we had our very first game of netball, and it was against the posh girls' school down the road, and we were not the posh school. We were rather the opposite from the posh school. And we lost 21-1. And it was horrendous. We were so humiliated. Even me, as this lanky 6 foot almost tall goalkeeper, I couldn't block. There were 21 goals. Well, what they seemed to have tall girls in every single position, and they'd obviously had a lot more sport in general, so their ability to, you know, to have ball control, to work as a team was much more experienced. They were much more experienced than we were as a team. And the first game, Miss Dawson was absolutely devastated, but she was still very kind to all of us. And she talked to us about what she'd noticed that needed to be improved. She was a very positive and motivating, inspirational teacher. And the second game we played, now this was by a school that was much closer to us, and in ability, and as well as in, you know, in status and class and everything. And we lost again, but this time it was only 18-1. So it wasn't quite. It felt like that was actually really good. It was an improvement, wasn't it? So from 21-1, we went to 18-1. Miss Dawson was fuming because she perceived that we'd started to take on a lot more of her teachings. And I remember in the next practice, it must have been, she was quite angry. She was very disappointed. And she was it was like she was in a bad mood with everybody. So we were getting the feeling that she didn't like us. And there's a girl in our team, and this little fiery redhead called Jane. And Jane was always playing around, and rather than feel like she was doing a bad job, she'd turn into a joker, which is quite for me, that's a very familiar role because I do the same. So Jane's being the joker because she'd made a mistake, and Miss Dawson screamed something, "That's a stupid thing to do," and Jane got in a strop. Jane got properly upset and stropped off, stroppy teenager. We were almost teenagers. We were 9, 10. And she stormed off the netball pitch. So Miss Dawson managed to rein her back in, and she got us all together in a group, and she sat us down. And I'll never forget this because it was the first time that I'd ever had this realization. And it was the first time anybody had ever explained this to me. She said, "When I say stupid, or when I say not good enough, or when I say that this is wrong," she said, "I am not talking about you. Don't take it personally. I'm talking about the behavior." Nobody had ever distinguished me from my behavior before. Up until that point in time, I had always assumed when people said stupid, bad, dumb, whatever word they'd used, I felt it was me that was stupid. I am stupid. And suddenly, Miss Dawson had given me this new insight, this new perspective, which was the thing I just did was stupid. The behavior I just enacted was stupid. The decision I just made was stupid. The choice I just took was stupid. Not me, not Marion. Marion isn't stupid. Marion's decision was a stupid decision. And I can't change Marion. Well, I can. I now know that. But I didn't know that when I was 9. But I can change my choices. I can change my behavior. I can change my actions. I can change my decisions. And so suddenly stupid wasn't this permanent label that was being thrust upon me personally. It was just a thing that I could actually do something about. And it didn't break my heart. because I think if Miss Dawson had called me stupid and I'd taken it personally, I really loved her. I looked up to her. She was trendy. She had Farrah Fawcett Major hair. I would have been really upset if I'd known she was calling me stupid. So she gave me this beautiful insight. And even today, I still, some 40 odd years later, forget that when people say stupid or when people do something that I perceive as stupid, I still sometimes forget it's not the person, it's the behavior. I still sometimes forget that. So it's a constant need to remind myself to discriminate between the person and the behavior, or the person and the choices that they make. Because the unity of all, the oneness of all, the consciousness of all is not, it is never stupid. It just makes silly decisions, and that can change. And so when somebody has disappointed me, when I have an expectation and somebody has disappointed me, the sooner I can come back to that discrimination, that realization that it's not the person that I'm upset with. My upset is mine. It's my reaction, my response to something that is actually a behavior. And I don't know what that other person is going through that has led to them behaving in that way. And so, but also what I can sometimes do is go into, then I start, this is where, I want to be Jesus, or I want to be the Dalai Lama, or I want to be this holy, compassionate, lovely, lovely person. That's not, it's not useful for me to have that desire, because then I judge myself against that. I see myself as not good enough because I'm not Jesus-like. I'm not compassionate enough. I'm not having enough empathy with this person. So that then takes me to a place where I judge myself. So I'm not compassionate enough is me saying that Marion's not good enough. And again, that's not true, because I am not displaying enough compassion, or I'm not empathizing in the right way, is again another way of looking at it, so that I'm not judging myself harshly. I'm just judging a behavior that I've done harshly. And if it's a behavior I've done, there's two things about every behavior. One is that they are learned. And when I learned the behavior, I will have believed that it was positive, it was useful, it was resourceful, it was good for me, it saved me in some way. And the other thing about behaviors are that they are changeable, they're flexible. So I think we might have mentioned this before, the neuroplasticity is the ability for the mind to change. It's the ability for the brain to rewire in a different way, which means that when I have learned something, it's created a wiring, a set of wiring in my brain. So I can unwire that and I can rewire a new behavior, a new way to choose, and I can go to that new place when I'm in a resourceful state, when I'm feeling positive, when I'm feeling inspired. And inspired is, so the word inspired itself is beautiful, isn't it? Because to inspire, inspiration is breathing in. Inspire, expire, to pass out, to give out. Expire also, yeah, to go beyond its sell-by date. It means it's gone beyond the boundary. So inspiration is, it's like a, inspiration is almost like an energy from the universe. When I'm inspired, it's like I'm connected to life. It's like I'm in flow with life. I'm in flow with my breath. And that is where my best creativity comes from. It's where my openness comes when I'm in flow. When you're in flow, that flow place is inspirational, isn't it? Because it inspires me to act. It inspires me to create. It's effortless. It's like it gives me energy. I take energy in when I'm inspired. And then there's a word motivated. But motivated is like me moving towards, and often we're motivated by lack. We're motivated by what we don't have, or we're motivated by what we don't want. And even if we think, well, I'm really motivated because, I want to make sure that, let me think, I want to make sure that I eat really well. So I'm going to be motivated to eat good food. Well, generally, I'm only going to do that if there's a possibility that I might eat bad food. So I'm motivated to have a big salad and make some lentils, because if I just allow my old habits to drive my desire for dinner, I could have a bag of crisps, or I could have some junk food or some fast food. But to be motivated, it is actually generally an external force. When we use the word motivation, it's often something about what's outside of ourselves. But the reason that I want to eat a healthy meal is not only because I want to avoid bad food, it's because I want to avoid bad feelings and bad health. I want to be in a healthy body. And the reason I want to be in a healthy body is because I'm inspired when I'm feeling good. I'm inspired when my blood sugar levels are even and they're not really high or really low, because that feels quite bad. I'm in a space of flow when my blood sugar levels are good. I'm in a space of flow when my body isn't too acidic. I'm in a space of flow when I'm not being disturbed by indigestion. So all of these things, I'm in balance. And when I'm in balance, I'm in flow. So, flow takes me up a little and down a little, but it's not crashing down and it's not spiking high. It's somewhere in between. So expectations. So when I have high expectations, I've kind of gone beyond flow a bit, because if they're high, if they're too high, if they're too far beyond where I am right now, if they're too far beyond where the world is right now, then the jump from here to there is too great. And often what happens is when somebody makes a promise to me, or when somebody says that they'll do something, or when I make a promise and I say I'll do something, sometimes it's outside of the boundary of flow. And it's going to trip me out into a place where I start to feel out of balance. When I start to feel out of balance, that will often trigger a very deep unconscious state of survival in me. And this is something that happens in the lowest back of the brain here, the reptile brain. The reptile brain, it's our unconscious part of the mind. It operates here. And it is the most amazing processor. So the reptile brain, it's been around for 650 million years. Obviously not my brain. It's not 650 million years old. That would be expired. That would be beyond its sell-by date. But there's, when we look at the way evolution has happened, and archaeologists and ecologists and all these people who look at fossils and things, when they go back through the timeline, they can see that there has been some form of being with a reptilian brain processor, and those beings have been around for 650 million years. So that's the brainstem. But the brainstem, it processes loads and loads of information, millions and millions of pieces of information every second. Whereas my outer brain, the cortex, the neocortex, which is the clever bit that does thinking, processing, planning, judging, rationalizing, that part of the brain is very young. It's only a few million years old. And so, and also the outer part of the brain is a slow processor. So it's like the inner brain is like the biggest, fastest, whizziest, latest PC ever. It's going to process millions and millions of pieces of information every second. And then the cortex is a bit like it's like an old mobile phone, actually, in comparison. So if we're processing things with this slow part of the brain, we are conscious of them, but we're not conscious of what's been going on in our reptile brain. Now, as I say, when we're outside the boundaries of this balance, the reptile brain starts to get involved, and it will make decisions that mean that we perceive, the being is perceiving that survival is at risk. When our survival is at risk, we are not consciously aware of it always. Obviously, if I'm being chased by a tiger, a saber-toothed tiger, I know my survival is at risk. But when I get into a serious judgment about somebody, when I go into a state of disappointment, when I go into a state of stress of any kind, that's actually the saber-toothed tiger trigger has gone off. And now my survival is at risk. So when I'm in that state, when I'm in any negative emotional place or any unresourceful place, it's my reptile brain is believing that my survival is at risk. And so the more I can maintain this area of flow that's inside the normal boundaries for me to flow, the more I am thriving, enjoying life, inspired, driven positively by my body, by my mind, from the inside, driven spiritually, if you like, in a positive way. My soul is singing, my heart is singing. The more I'm in that space, then the easier my life will be, the better I will feel. And it actually helps me to open up creativity. So that even if I do pop out of my comfort zone or my flow or my balance, I'm not struck down by fear. I'm not struck down by doubt, by ideas of lack of trust. So often when we're disappointed in somebody, we believe we can't trust them anymore. When we're out of trust, again, this has a sense of survival connected to it in some way. And so there's so many things that we can do about this. There's so much that we can learn about this that will help us, because as much as we can learn new things, we can unlearn the old things. And the more new resourceful things we learn, the old unresourceful things, if we don't use them, you know, our brain areas, our thoughts and our behaviors, they're like muscles. The more we use them, the more they grow. The more we use them, the stronger they are. We need to keep them fit and flexible. So it's not just about strengthening the muscles of thought and behavior. It's about keeping them flexible. And it's inspiration that keeps them fit and flexible. It's motivation that often makes them strong, but inspiration is what keeps them flexible. And inspiration is really from the heart. We might believe and perceive that inspiration is something that's going to drive us mentally, drive our behaviors, but actually its roots are in the heart. And the heart is controlled on a physical level and on an energetic level. The heart is controlled by this reptilian brain. So it gets, when we're in fight or flight, when we're in survival is at risk mode, the heart's going to contract a little bit. The heart's going to get stuck a little bit. It's going to be able to connect less to openness, to expansion, and to creativity. The other thing that happens when we are disappointed is a sense of blame. And so, and again, blame is where we are focusing on what's outside of us. Now, we all know we can't change what's outside of us. We can't change others. We can change ourselves by unlearning and learning new, or remembering the resourceful. So we do have the ability to change what goes on within us. We have the ability to change our responses. We have the ability to change our reactions. Some of them are very hard work. Recently, I'm working with one of my teachers, and we're working on something that happens in my body, which is clenching. And this clenching is an unconscious, it's like it's hardwired into my nervous system that I get startled very easily. And I almost live in this state of perpetual startle. And I believe that this is a result of being brought up in a house where there was lots of violence, where there was alcoholism, where there was chaos, constant chaos. And so my poor little body was constantly shocked and startled by the chaos, by the violence, by the aggression, by the there was no way that you could judge or perceive trust. That's the word. There was no way that I could find a place of trust where I could relax and soften into the space, because at any moment something could generate anger in one of my parents or one of my brothers or one of my relatives. And in that moment where the anger is generated, suddenly there is aggression and violence around me. And my little body then goes into a deep state of fight or flight or freeze, into a deep state of survival is at risk. And so my body is kind of been, it's like it's been tricked into believing that there is always danger, that I must always be vigilant. I must always be, and in vigilance, our focus is very narrow. In vigilance and in survival, we are only looking at, we're looking out, we're looking to see, can I see the danger? Can I see the danger? Now, unfortunately, when my focus is very vigilant and very narrow, guess what I'm not seeing? 99% of what's around me. My peripheral vision isn't open, because peripheral vision happens when I'm relaxed. My sensitivity is blocked, because when I'm really relaxed and I'm not in focus like tunnel vision, then I can be aware of all sorts of changes in my environment. But when I'm scared and I'm looking around, like I've got a telescope, I've got tunnel vision, and I'm looking around to see, oops, where's the scary thing? Where's the and then I'm totally believing that there is a scary thing, and my whole body is looking for it and tuned into it. So I am not tuned in to all of the beauty around me. I am not tuned in to to all of the possible good stuff, but I'm also not tuned into other possible bad stuff. So my perception is completely blocked and channeled into one small space, or one small place, or one small time. And the work that I'm doing with my teacher is to begin to unravel this startled response from my body. And it's taking time, it's taking a long time, and there are many layers to it, because it's been so unconsciously driven. It's been driven by this reptile brain since before I was born, because there was violence around when my mum was pregnant with me, when I was in the womb. And so I believe that the wiring, the learning that danger is around, I must be vigilant, I must keep an eye out for danger. I believe that I've been running that behavior since before I even left the womb. And so undoing that work, unlearning vigilance, unlearning this clenching, is taken a long time, but it's working. There's a really, really wonderful teacher who I have met occasionally. He's a scientist. He's called Rupert Sheldrake. And he does lots of experiments around the sense of being stared at. How, you know, when you're relaxed and you're just going about your day and doing whatever it is you're doing in your day, and suddenly you look around and you see someone looking at you. Now, that might be somebody that you love. It might be somebody that you don't know. But this sense of being stared at, it's a real human phenomena. I think it's probably an animal phenomena, maybe a mammal, but I don't know. But it's a real phenomena. It really happens. And this guy, Rupert Sheldrake, he studies it. He writes about it. He's really interested in it. Because what he's started to understand is that these are other senses that we have. Beyond the 5 senses that perceive the material world, there are many other senses, and one of them is the sense of being stared at. He also wrote a book about dogs that know when their owners are coming home. And what he found out from these experiments was, because he did loads and loads of watching, like he'd put cameras in the house to watch the dog and a camera at work to watch the owner. And he was trying to work out when the dog started to get excited because the owner was coming home, what was it that the owner had just done that had triggered the excitement in the dog? And what he found, this is so fascinating, this is kind of mind-blowing. What he found was that the owner, as soon as the owner made the decision in their mind, they may not have even, you know, closed their drawer at work or switched off their computer yet. They may have still been halfway through entering data on a spreadsheet or creating a Word document. But as soon as the thought came into the owner's mind, oh, right, look, it's 10 to 5. I'm going to get ready in a minute and go home. That thought stimulated the dog's response. So the senses that we have that are outside of our 5 senses are amazing, magical. But when we are stuck in our 5 senses, or when we are stuck in a place where the reptilian brain is switched on to survival mode, to our survival is in danger, then we actually do not have full access to these other senses. Our extrasensory perception is inhibited by this reptilian brain being switched on to my survival is at risk. So in order for me to have the best life that I can have, for me to find ways to stay in balance and in flow, which means that my reptile brain is happy and it believes that things are okay and that life is going well and that survival, I'm trusting in my survival, this is where I will have access to the most creativity. This is where I will have access to the most joy. This is where I'll have access to the best life that I can have, to the best potentialities that life has to throw at me. And we do have to face the darkness. And the reason that we have to face the darkness is so that we can grow and expand. And as we grow and expand, then this field of flow that we occupy will also expand. And so learning that expectations are not actually a good way to stay in our own flow is definitely part of my journey. And I'm sure that many of you, if not all of you, have similar experiences to me, because the more people I get to know, the more people I get to work with, the more traveling I do, the more I realize how we are the same. The more I realize how the differences between us are so insignificant compared to the similarities that we share. The differences between us are insignificant. They're tiny when we compare it to the similarities that we share. And that might be in behavior, that might be in our physical being, that might be in our emotional being. We are all unique and we are all individual. And that's why the world is so beautiful and interesting. And that's often why we learn as much as we learn. But actually, the truth is much more profound when we look at how the same we are, how unified we are. And in that unification, in that sameness, in that the union of the universe, or the union of the planet Earth that we live on. We're all pieces of the planet Earth, aren't we? I'm made up of material that's come from this planet, of food that's come from this planet, of beings that have come from this planet. That's what makes me. That's what makes you. We're all of this planet. We're all pieces of planet Earth living together. And the more that we come to realize this, and the more in acceptance we become, and the more trusting that we become, that even when things wind us up, and even when expectations don't get met, and even when we're disappointed, I'm still more the same as you than I am different. And as much as I can judge you, it's only as much as I can judge myself. So when I'm harsh to you, I'm actually being even harsher to myself. And so where can we really find access to processes and ways to regain balance? Once we've popped out, because we will, life is going to keep challenging us, then that's how we grow. But how can we encompass that growth so that we regain our balance, so that we regain our creativity, regain our flow, and regain our joy? I think for me, that's my life's work, is to find ways that do that effectively, to find ways that do that efficiently, to find ways that do that, that inspire me, because I know that when I'm inspired, I inspire others. I don't have to try. I don't have to make an effort. I don't have to do anything. When I am inspired, I am inspiring, and so are you. And so, lovely, inspirational Marina, please come and join me and inspire me with some of your words, and share with me how you've been inspired by me being inspired. Come and join me when you're ready.
Marion, I have a very bad connectivity, you know.
Okay.
I'm working on the line, so if we drop at any point, I do apologize in advance.
Okay.
So you know, I was thinking that the standards of your thinking determine the standards of your life.
Yes.
To me, this is my truth. So
Yeah.
when, for example, you talk to your children and they say, I want to do this, and you go and back them up fully,
Yeah.
because it's what they want. And it's the same with your clients.
Yeah.
When they go on a new venture, which you know is not going to be easy, and you tell them, and yet they're saying, no, I'm in. But if they're not all in, what's happening? At some point, you are giving them more than they are giving themselves.
Uh-huh.
And this is something I experienced lately, where I'm helping people who need to grow into the person who can deliver their life mission.
Yes.
And I'm going all in. I'm passionate about them. Yes. I will work 20 hours a day and I won't get tired. Yes. This is how passionate I am.
Yes.
And then they get scared of their own greatness, or they feel it's my job to deliver them, and it's not. You see, so delivery, you've been created, and I'm so inspired by you, Marion, and I'm so grateful. You in many ways, you brought so much light into my life. Because I couldn't understand what's happening, why people behave that way. And that people I love them with all my heart.
Yes.
Otherwise, I won't help them. I don't need to help them.
Yes.
But when they're asking for help, you can't turn your back on them.
Okay. Well, I disagree.
Yes, but sometimes that's exactly. But lately, I learned that the best thing you could do is to turn your back and lead the way. If they want to follow, that's good luck.
Yes, but there are alternatives as well, Marina. There's the alternative of curiosity. So if you could help with them to become curious about what is it that's motivating them and what is it that's inspiring them. We often find that what motivates us is this hidden fear of what I don't want to be or what I don't want to feel. There's a hidden fear, a hidden avoidance, which is pushing me forwards. Now, when something pushes me forward, actually, there's resistance in that. And in resistance, I will lose my power and I will lose my energy. But when I am carried forwards towards something, this is the difference between motivation and inspiration. Motivation can be exhausting. Inspiration gives me energy.
Yeah, because you see, motivation is like taking a daily shower. It runs, wears off. So your mind, your heart, everything that you are about, it's wearing you down because it's very hard to stay at the very high level of your vibrations unless you feed yourself with more inspiration. And inspiration, as you said, is in very short supply. If it's something that is running out in this world, it's inspiration. And that's why we are here. That's why you, me, and all the genius farmers in our family at W.O.R.K.S World are seeding planting the seeds of greatness.
And what is also absolutely, and what is also true, Marina, is that a lot of what we are, a lot of the fears that we're running away from, a lot of what is exhausting to us is very, very unconscious. It's deeply, deeply buried. And we have developed very clever strategies at a very early age to avoid going near those negative feelings. So we instantly skip out of them. So, when I said about Jane, my friend in the netball team, and she was a joker, I do the same. When I'm aware, I'm not even aware of it. When I begin to get close to an emotional place, or it's called an intrinsic memory, a learned negative experience, when I start to get anywhere near that, I've developed a very strong mental strategy that carries me into Joker, because then I can avoid feeling bad. And I don't even know that I'm doing it. And it's taken me many years of work and lots. This is why I still work regularly, at least once a week with my teachers, to dig down deep into my unconscious emotional programs, these same intrinsic memories, digging really, really deep, because they are full of programs, full of conditioning that I am totally unconscious of. But when I start to bring them into consciousness, then I start to realize where my negative results were coming from, where my sabotaging behavior was coming from, where my avoidance was coming from, where my lack of ability to achieve was coming from. So I start to find those out, but it's really hard work. And we do have to be very open and very accepting and understand that our judgments of ourselves or of others, they don't help, because they hold us in fear. And in fear, we can't be open. We're always closed and foveal and overly focused on one point when we're in fear.
And I think, Marion, oh God, everything you are saying so profound and resonates with me. And I'm sure our listeners, each one of our listeners, could say, well, that's it. I got it. I was like an eureka moment after moment. So from the other hand, I feel that the most immediate solution, I apply that to myself, and I help my clients with that, and I help everybody I love to trade fear for love. But from both of us, until next time, is goodbye. And you know what? Go and grab your tickets to the W.O.R.K.S World Awards, because Marion is going to be on stage and she is going to share with you everything you need to know. From both of us, lots of love. Goodbye.
Goodbye.